Back in 1970, American Motors introduced the Hornet, an all-new $40 million design to compete with compact Japanese imports, as well as the Ford Maverick and Chevy Vega.
This fall, the Sportabout, a stylish compact car designed for the way a woman uses a car.
Recycling the name once used on a Hudson best known for stock car racing, the Hornet would also offer high-performance versions, and even an over-the-top luxury Gucci trim. But with AMC's push to compete with luxury brands, the Hornet platform was repurposed in 1977 to become the Concorde. This same platform would eventually underpin the very last AMC car, the Eagle wagon, but still come back as a Dodge decades later. This is the story of the AMC Hornet. This is my old car.
I've never done that before!
Neither have I, actually.
This episode is continuing the theme I started with my previous video on the Ford Maverick. Although the Maverick and Hornet were competitors, the ongoing theme here is the recycling of car names. Similar to how the Maverick name from the 1970s was later recycled for both SUVs and pickups, with the latter still being sold in North America as of this video's release in early 2025. The name Hornet was used not only after AMC's 1970s version, but also before. Like I noted in my Maverick episode, I am planning a future episode about recycled car names, and I would like your input to help me compile that list. You can provide your suggestions in this video's comments, or send me an email, or message me on Instagram. I already have started a list of my own, but I would like to see what you think are the best or worst examples of car name recycling to help me in ranking the list. Whereas all the variations of the Maverick remain under the Ford banner, the name Hornet has been used across 3 different car brands. Those 3 brands, for those who don't know car history, may appear unrelated to one another, and imply that the last 2 effectively stole the Hornet name from the original. But that's not the case here, as ownership of the Hornet name was passed on via acquisition from one company to the next, such as the most recent version being sold, although not very well, by Dodge.
What you really need in life is some freaking torque.
What?
The Hornet name was first introduced in 1951 by Hudson Motor Company, and was one of the earliest examples of a performance-themed model from any automaker. Back when stock car racing actually used stock car models that could be sold to the public, the Hornet was powered by Hudson's 5-liter inline 6-cylinder that could produce 145 horsepower, hence the engine's name H145. The first-gen Hornet only lasted 4 years, and as such should be mostly forgotten decades later. However, many kids from the 2000s through today probably recognize it, thanks to being brought to life, literally, as the character Doc Hudson in the 2006 Pixar film, Cars.
Mater didn't get to say goodbye.
Goodbye! Okay, I'm good.
The end of the first-generation Hudson Hornet in 1954 also marked the end of Hudson as a standalone company, as Hudson merged with Nash Kelvinator to become American Motors. The second-gen Hornet lasted until 1957, and was still branded as a Hudson in those last 3 years, despite the change in the corporate name. It was also then that American Motors started using their corporate initials, AMC, to become their branding going forward. The former Hornet models were rebranded as the AMC Rambler, a name that would become the company's most popular model line in the 1960s. Based on the 1966 Cavalier sedan and Vixen coupe concept cars, the 1970 Hornet, released in late 1969, cost AMC $40 million over 3 years to design and produce. Designer Dick Teague developed AMC's new junior car size platform such that it could work with other models, such as the subcompact Gremlin that arrived in 1970, sharing the same bodywork from the doors forward. The same compact platform was later used for the Concorde, the Spirit, and the 4-wheel drive Eagle that all arrived after the Hornet's run ended in 1977, representing the longest production of the same platform in AMC's entire 35-year history. 1970 is considered by some to be the peak of success for AMC, as it not only introduced the Hornet's platform that underpinned so many other models, but 1970 was also the year AMC purchased Chrysler Jeep. As was typical back then for most cars, the Hornet was only available in rear-wheel drive, and with a variety of engines, ranging from a 3.3-liter inline 6-cylinder to a 5-liter V8. This was similar to the engine options of the Ford Maverick, and so like the Maverick, the Hornet wasn't any real competition for the Japanese imports that offered more efficient 4-cylinder engines. Also like the Maverick, the Hornet was available as a 2-door coupe or 4-door sedan, and the coupe shared an almost identical base price of just under $2,000. But unlike the Maverick, the Hornet also offered a glove box on all models. By the end of 1970, AMC sold just over 100,000 Hornets, with nearly half them being the 2-door base coupe. Good numbers for AMC, but less than a fifth of the sales the Maverick got in the same year.
Hornet buyers will choose over the Maverick simply because the Hornet can give them more than competition.
In its second year of 1971, a wagon model was added to the Hornet line. With its steeply raked rear glass and a rear door that swung upwards, it was more like a four-door hatchback in design, which may be why AMC marketed it as the Hornet Sportabout. Maybe not calling it a wagon was a good idea, as the Sportabout was 1971's most popular Hornet, selling over 73,000 units, compared to under 50,000 units sold for all other Hornet models combined. 1971 also introduced a high-performance version called the SC360, which AMC marketed as a compact muscle car, and a follow-up to the 1969 SC Rambler. The 360 in the name was for its 360 cubic inch, or 5.9 liter displacement of its V8 engine, which produced 245 horsepower. This standard V8 for the SC360 had a 2-barrel carburetor, but you could pay an extra $199 to upgrade to the Go package, which had a 4-barrel carburetor and ram air induction, increasing horsepower to 285. Magazines like Motor Trend and Hot Rod gave impressive reviews of the SC360's quarter-mile times of under 15 seconds. But with the muscle car era in its final years, only 784 units of this high-performance trim was ever sold for 1971. However, the same 5.9-liter engine was brought back as an option in 1972, just not marketed as the SC360. For 1972, the Sportabout wagon was again their top seller for the year, but less than half as many wagons were sold in 72 as opposed to 71. Out of the 34,000 wagons sold, nearly 2,600 of them were designated as the Gucci Sportabout. Sold under license of Aldo Gucci, the famous Italian fashion designer, there was little on the outside to identify a Gucci model, but on the inside were custom bucket seats with striped inserts, and even leather on the doors. This package only cost $140, but was typically sold on the 5-liter V8 models with extras like air conditioning and automatic transmission. So a typical Gucci model could cost 50% more than a base model. The Gucci trim continued in 1973, where an additional 2,200 were sold. That same year, AMC offered the Sporty X package on the Hornet, similar to the same option they offered on the Gremlin the year before. Complete with extra badging and racing stripes, as well as black wall tires, the X could be had with any of the Hornet's available engines, making it essentially an appearance package and not intended for performance. Also in 1972, but only in Canada, was the Green Hornet trim, to cash in on the popularity of the superhero of the same name. With only 300 sold, the car's exterior was, of course, green. But the comic book connection didn't go any further than the name, as the Green Hornet character from the TV series drove a black 1966 Chrysler LeBaron Imperial. The 1973 Hornet offered a new 2-door hatchback model, selling over 40,000 units, making it nearly as popular as the Sportabout wagon's 44,000 units sold that year. Optional on the hatchback was a Levi's trim that had simulated denim on the seats, or you could get a pop-up camper attached to the open hatch. I guess we now know where Pontiac got the idea for the camper pop-up on the Aztek. And thanks to federal mandates, the bumpers grew as well, making the overall length 6 inches longer than before. Although the 1974 Hornets didn't have any big changes from the previous year, AMC kept the model fresh in the public eye thanks to a memorable movie role.
Now, I know you!
Although the X trim that began in 1972 wasn't a performance package, some may think it was, as the 1974 Hornet X was featured in the James Bond movie The Man with the Golden Gun, and not just featured, but performing a stunt that probably would never be tried today unless a lot of CGI was involved. With the interior gutted and repurposed to put the stunt driver in the center, the Hornet was launched from a specially designed curved ramp.
You're not thinking that.
I sure am, boy.
And performed a complete 360-degree barrel roll. This single scene has likely been included in every 007 compilation video ever made. By the way, AMC has more product placement in this movie than just the Hornet, as a Matador coupe is transformed into an airplane, and Matador sedans also show up as police cars. Despite that movie role, AMC put little focus on the Hornet in terms of changes for its final years. Only a new grille design can be used to identify a 1975 model. Much of the reason for the lack of focus on the Hornet was AMC's launch of its new compact model, the Pacer, that same year. I already did an episode on the Pacer a while back if you want to check that one out too. Despite the reputation the Pacer has today, its bizarre design was a sales hit in its first couple years, so much so that AMC decided to plan for a replacement of the Hornet that would move it away from the economy car class and more towards luxury, so much so that it would also get a name change. But before that happened, AMC decided to give the Hornet one last parting gift, and that was to bring back its AMX performance moniker for the Hornet's final year of 1977. The letters AMX were the entire model name of a 2-seat sports car AMC produced from 1968 through 1970, whose intended competition was the Chevy Corvette. Although the AMX was far cheaper, Its sales numbers never made it a serious Corvette challenger, leading to its cancellation after just 3 years. Whereas the original AMX offered one of two V8 engines, the larger of two being a 6.4-liter. The Hornet AMX could be had with the Hornet's existing inline-6 or 5-liter V8, although if you wanted a manual transmission, you had to go with a 6-cylinder. As this was the late 70s, long after the muscle car era had ended, the Hornet AMX's best competition were cars like the Chevy Monza Spider and Plymouth Volare Roadrunner. Only around 5,200 of the Hornet AMXs were ever produced. For 1978, the AMC Hornet was gone, replaced by the Concorde, which ran until 1983, sharing the same junior-sized platform. AMC also used this platform on the Gremlins replacement, the Spirit, and a new 4-wheel drive model, the Eagle. That's another car I did an episode on, one of my earliest episodes from over 3 years ago. The Eagle would end up being the last model AMC sold that was branded as AMC, as they still sold models under the Jeep brand. It was that brand that caught the interest of newly hired Chrysler CEO Lee Iacocca, who, after successfully negotiating a government bailout, had enough cash to buy AMC in 1987, and in turn Chrysler gained the rights to all of AMC's intellectual property, which included defunct car model names. The Hornet name remained dormant for over 3 decades, at least as a production model. However, Dodge did use the Hornet name on a concept car in 2006. Considering the SUV and crossover trend was heating up in the mid-2000s, it's no surprise the Hornet concept was SUV-like in design, although Dodge was calling it a compact multi-purpose vehicle, or MPV. This concept never made it to production, considering Chrysler was only a couple years away from bankruptcy. Chrysler would later take on a new life when it combined with Fiat in 2014, which eventually led to the next opportunity to bring back the Hornet name.
They've been speaking to us in code for years. Now they're finally here.
These Hornets are not natural.
They're engineered.
Although this next Hornet, like the concept, would also be a Dodge, it would have something the concept couldn't have: Italian heritage. Chrysler's association with Fiat meant that they could share designs with Alfa Romeo. Although Alfa Romeo had long been considered a high-end luxury brand, in 2022 they tried moving into the entry-level luxury compact segment with the Tonale, which was also their first gas-electric hybrid.
The all-new Alfa Romeo Tonale, designed to lead the charge.
Dodge needed a replacement for the canceled and admittedly boring Journey SUV, so they opted to rebadge the Tonale to become the new Dodge Hornet. Although it launched with a significant advertising budget, as well as pushing a higher performance RT model, its somewhat generic little SUV design has meant the reception to the new Hornet has been, shall we say, less than spectacular. The Dodge Hornet, which has one of the largest supplies of unsold models on dealer lots, has become a prime example of the difficulties Stellantis has been having, which led to CEO Carlos Tavares resigning as Stellantis CEO on December 1st of 2024. It makes me think that this latest Hornet will probably be the last. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you once owned a car from the 70s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
Don't even think about it. Get out.
Say cheese. You made bail real quick, didn't you, Wilby?
Well, your boss is going to be real happy with the tab you're running, because you're under arrest again.
I might let you go with a warning. You can tell me why you've been following me.